Hello, and welcome to the Capitola Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, June 6th, 2025. This meeting is open to the public with both in-person attendance at the City of Capitola Council Chambers at 420 Capitola Avenue, and remote viewing is also possible. Planning Commission and staff are attending the meeting in person, and members of the public wanting to offer public comment need to be present. Public can live stream the meeting on the city's website, on YouTube, or on Zoom following the link on the meeting agenda. As always, this meeting is cablecast live on Spectrum Communications Cable TV Channel 8 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and is being recorded to be rebroadcast on the following Mondays and Fridays at 1 p.m. on Spectrum Channel 71 and Spectrum Channel 25. A recording of the meeting will also be available on the city's website after the meeting. Our technician tonight is Eric Johansson. As a reminder, please turn off your cell phones during the meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Howard?
Here.
Commissioner Q?
Here.
Commissioner Westman? Vice Chair Christensen? Here. Chair SD?
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, the first item on the agenda are additions and deletions to the agenda. Any last minute changes?
No last minute changes.
Okay. Next, item number 3, oral communications. Oral communications allows time for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on any consent item on tonight's agenda or any topic within the jurisdiction of the city that is not on the public hearing section of the agenda. Members of the public may speak for up to 3 minutes unless otherwise specified by the chair. Individuals may not speak more than once during the oral communications, and all speakers must address the entire legislative body and will not be permitted to engage in dialogue. Do we have anybody from the public who would like to speak?
Hi, my name is Goran Klapic. I'm former security guard from Zelda's on the beach. I worked the front door with George, my black brother George at that time. During that time, I observed something. There was illegal cocaine trafficking going on the premises of Bay Bar back then. I mentioned that previously to some officials in this city, and some of you have to be aware of that things like that go on sometimes in the city of Capitola. It's just not reported, you know. That's not the only issue that I'm having at the moment. It's about Jade Street Park. I want to remind that I understand that they want to legalize marijuana locally and everything, but when I was working in law enforcement overseas, we were seeing marijuana as a gateway drug to further drugs incorporated like cocaine, heroin, or ecstasy. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who wish to speak? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the oral communications and move on to Planning Commission or staff comments. Let me start with the commissioners. Any initial introductory comments for tonight?
No, just to congratulate Courtney on how well the work survey went.
Well, thanks, Commissioner Westman. It was really great. It's been really fun reading about everybody's opinions.
And there are plenty of them.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, Katie, staff?
Oh, I was just going to say we're moving into summer and the Twilight concert series starts next week. So next Wednesday night at 6 p.m. And then there's going to be the new Capitola Makers Market out on the wharf. 10 a.m. on the 22nd of June. So some fun things. We're headed into the busy season, a lot of festivals and good times. So welcome to summer.
Yeah, the VW show was actually quite amusing. It was pretty good. Some pretty old cars there. Okay.
Is the car show next weekend?
Yeah.
Is it
I think so.
I think it's the 13th.
weekend? It's the Father's Day weekend?
Wednesday weekend, right?
You know, I believe so. Not 100%.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered by the Planning Commission to be routine. It will be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. There'll be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the Planning Commission votes on the action unless the Planning Commission requests specific items to be discussed for separate review. Items pulled for separate discussion will be considered in the order listed on the agenda. Any of the commissioners wish to pull any item on the consent calendar? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar, items A and B.
I'll go ahead and second that.
Okay, thank you. And can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Howard, Commissioner Q,
Aye.
Commissioner Westman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Christensen,
Aye.
Chair Esty.
Aye. Okay, the consent calendar is approved, and we'll move on to public hearings. Public hearings are intended to provide an opportunity for public discussion of each item
Recording
listed
in progress.
as a public hearing. The following procedure is as follows: staff presentation, planning commission questions, public comment, and then planning commission deliberation and decision if there is a decision. The first item on the agenda is actually a presentation by our partner agencies from Central Fire and SoCal Water District, Santa Cruz Water, et cetera. This will be slightly different. Each of the agencies will do a presentation of 5 to 7 minutes, I think. At which point Planning Commission, you can ask questions. Once all the agencies are complete, then I'll open it up for public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the commission. There's no decision on this. This is just information purposes only. So I'm not sure what the order is. I guess we do have it listed.
So I'll just give a little overview here. So over the past 2 years, we've been working on our housing element, and the question continues to come up of how do we plan for this? Capitola is not a full service city, meaning that we do not have water, sanitation, or fire, and we depend on outside agencies for that work. So our partnership agencies are here this evening to present, and the focus tonight will really be about how we plan for growth and the development process. Anytime we have an application that comes into the city for a building development application, it goes through, we send them out to our partners for review and approval before issuing building permits. So that's one way we work together, but this is more to really focus in on long-range planning and what we're all doing in terms of long-range planning. So with that, I think the first presentation will be from Santa Cruz Water Department. And we have Heidi Lukenbach and Sarah Easley Perez. So.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Heidi Lukenbach. I'm the Water Director for the City of Santa Cruz. I'm going to quickly hand it over to my colleague, Sarah Perez, who is our principal planner. She'll be giving the presentation on how the city thinks about growth, incorporates growth into the water supply planning, and then we'll both be available for questions.
Good evening, Commissioners. As Heidi said, I'm Sarah Easley Perez, Principal Planner with the City of Santa Cruz Water Department. Next slide. I wanted to give a quick overview of the Water Department. We are a department of the City of Santa Cruz. We do serve a service area larger than the city. We serve about 100,000 people, and I'm not going to read all the details on the slides. I'll try to move through this fairly quickly. Next slide. This is an overview of our service area. You can see that we serve the entirety of the City of Santa Cruz. We serve UC Santa Cruz. We serve portions of unincorporated Santa Cruz County and a portion of the City of Capitola, of course. That portion is mainly west of 41st Avenue. It does include the Capitola Mall. Next slide. This is a look at our water sources. Like all of our local water agencies, our water supply is 100% local. We're not connected to any state or federal water projects. So all of the water that we use comes from within our county. Unlike most of our neighboring districts, we are primarily reliant on surface water. Over 90% of our water comes from surface water sources. These include the San Lorenzo River, as well as streams on the north coast of the county. And we have one surface water reservoir, that is Loch Lomond, which is located in Ben Lomond. We do supplement that supply with 4 groundwater wells. Those are our Belts well facilities. They're located in the Live Oak area, and they provide between 5 to 8% of our supply annually. There's a lot of information on this slide. This is a look at our historic water use trends. Starting at the top, you can see population growth over time. You can also note in recent years that we've seen a slight decline in population. And that large dip you see is 2020 during COVID, when UC Santa Cruz students were not part of our service area. Below that, you can see the blue line. Those are a number of accounts. You can see how they've kind of leveled out over time. And the bottom, the red line, represents our water sales or our demand over time. And you can see how they peaked in the 2000s, and since the drought of 2014, they dropped down and really never recovered to those previous levels. With conservation and efficient appliances and plumbing codes, we've really seen that demand level out. I do want to point out that additional red line, that's 3,000 million gallons that I marked on there. We'll see that again, but that is our projected 25-year expected demand. So you see it's pretty far below what we've experienced in the past. This is our cumulative development forecast that was developed in 2024 in the fall. This was in support of a water supply analysis that was done for the city's downtown plan expansion project. We did an update of our demand forecast. And you can see in the red box is where the city of Capitola's demands were included in that estimate. And this is just a look at that long-term demand forecast, where you can see that 3,000 million gallons by 2045 that we are projecting.
So this is the one sort of interest to us. So are you projecting single-family residence, multifamily residence in accordance with the RENA requirements of the state?
So if we back up a slide.
I mean, you have the 1336 here for Capitola for
Correct.
the next 6 years, but did you project it out into the future at the same rate of development as we're imposed upon us, so to speak, over the next 6 years?
We
Did you
did.
guys do that?
We did not project that further out.
Okay.
We do have an opportunity upcoming, which I'll get to, where we're going to update our demand forecast for the urban water management plan.
Okay, thank you.
We can go on to the next slide. I wanted to add a note on uncertainty for demand forecasting. As a whole, water suppliers haven't been great over time in estimating long-term demand forecasts. There are a lot of unknowns as we look out 20, 25 years. We're doing our best. Hopefully we're getting better over time, but this is just to emphasize there are a lot of unknowns in these projections. And I wanted to touch a little bit on water supply augmentation and the city's efforts there. While we're projecting pretty modest increases in demand over time, the challenges of climate change, hydroclimate variability, where we have longer, deeper droughts, more rain when it does rain, these are challenges to our system, which has limited supply. So the city has been working diligently since 2015 when we convened our Water Supply Advisory Committee on a water supply augmentation portfolio of projects that would provide our long-term water supply. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but we're looking at use of our existing groundwater basins, the Santa Cruz Mid-County Basin and the Santa Margarita Basin, recharging that basin through active and passive means. Active means through aquifer storage and recovery, passive through transfers and exchanges. We're looking at partners with our local agencies, potential partnerships with Soquel Creek Water District and their Pure Water Soquel project. We're currently building an intertie with the Scotts Valley Water District. And then looking also at recycled water and or desal if needed to meet those future demands. And a quick look at our timeline. Over the next 2 years, we're trying to really hone in on that final project or suite of projects that will meet our water supply objectives with the goal of having those constructed by the early 2030s. And then touching on upcoming planning studies, we're getting ready to embark on our 2025 Urban Water Management Plan. These are state mandated plans that are due from all water districts every 5 years. We'll be starting that process this summer. It is due next summer. And that will include a look at a description of our system. We'll update our demand forecast. We'll project our supply reliability, and it also includes a water shortage contingency plan, what we'll do in times of shortage. And with that, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
I have one. You mentioned recycled water. Is there sort of a timeline for when your district would consider having recycled water?
So we're looking at recycled water in a few possible ways. We're looking at the possibility of partnering with Soquel Creek Water District and their Pure Water Soquel project. That could be a recycled water project. We're also looking at the potential for direct potable reuse, a city constructed project, and it's we will make that decision in about 2 years.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, how much different would the consumption be at the mall if it were 1,000 apartments versus the mall?
Modern multifamily housing with high efficient appliances is really pretty efficient. I don't know the mall's existing consumption to be able to compare, but 1,000 units in a multifamily housing is not 1,000 single family homes with yards. And certainly our modern building code requires a very efficient construction.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Before we move on, does everybody hear that beeping sound? What is it?
There it goes.
Oh, we think it's the medical device because they just maybe replace the batteries to, I'm not sure, but that seems to be. But they came in and serviced them today, so we might have to call them tomorrow.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. Let's see. Next is Soquel Water District, I think.
Hello,
Thank you for having me. My name is Alyssa Abbey, and I am the staff analyst in water resources at Soquel Creek Water District. And I have here with me today our general manager, Melanie Mao Schumacher, and we'll both strive to answer any questions that you have. I do work on long-range demand projections at the district, and I've also been very involved in our processes and policies for new developments. And so first, I just was going to orient you a little bit to our district. If you could go to our first slide. So our district serves around 40,000 people. We have about 16,000 connections, and that's from about La Selva Beach up to 41st Avenue. It gets a little bit squiggly up there on 41st, but that's just about our dividing line. We do not serve the Capitola Mall. And we are a not-for-profit special district, and we have a staff of just shy of 50 people. And we are a water district that's reliant on 100% groundwater. So in contrast to the city, we don't have any surface water supply. And like the city, we are just dependent on what we have here. We don't have any connection to any state water project. And the groundwater aquifers that we rely on for 100% of our supply are currently in a state of overdraft, and that means that seawater has begun to intrude into them, and that threatens their quality and reliability for the region. And in fact, the impacts to groundwater were listed as a significant unavoidable impact in the city's 2018 general plan EIR. Because of this, our district has been in a stage 3 water shortage emergency since 2013. And that's gone with a 25% curtailment target that we've asked of our customers. Thankfully, we have amazing customers, excuse me, and they've really stepped up and shown an amazing amount of conservation during this time that it's taken for us to come up with a supplemental supply. And that supplemental supply that we have come up with is called Pure Water Soquel. And we have completed construction of Pure Water Soquel. It's a project that takes advanced purified wastewater and recharges it back into the groundwater. And then that recharged water serves as a buffer against the seawater as it intrudes into the freshwater aquifer. And it will help to support our biggest production wells. The project's currently in testing, but we hope to get it operational in the next couple of months. And we expect that it's going to make our district more resilient in the face of climate change and also the expanding need for housing in the region. We can go to the next slide. Based on our last demand projections and Pure Water Soquel beginning operations soon, we expect that we're going to be able to provide water services to any projected new development in our district. And if you look at the graph, you can see that our production since about 2013 has fallen quite a bit. And then it's held relatively steady. We actually, in the last couple of years, had our lowest production years since, I think, the early 70s. So that's a testament to our customers and to the change in efficiency and attitudes that have occurred over time. But we do project a higher unconstrained demand, unconstrained being if we did not have any water shortage stage declared. We do project that being higher out on our planning horizon out to 2040. And that's what we have used to inform our supply planning is that higher amount of demand. And that demand out to 2040, that little orange bit, that's what we project as being from new development. So what we're expecting is overwhelmingly from our existing development, but we're expecting that we're going to be able to serve both. This projection was done in 2020 as part of our last urban water management plan, and so it doesn't incorporate the most recent housing projections for the area. And so we do expect to be engaging with city planning staff over the next year to make sure that we get the most up-to-date information incorporated into this next projection cycle. And then I did just briefly want to go over our new service requirements because, you know, this is kind of the zoomed out view of our long range planning. But day to day, it's not always been super easy to get a new connection with us over the last few years. And because as you can imagine, with an issue as pressing as seawater intrusion, the priority for the water we pumped was for our existing customers and to make sure we didn't exacerbate our issue. And so we did have a demand mitigation program called the Water Demand Offset Program since 2003, which could add a fair amount of cost and extra hurdles for development. And that program did get discontinued at the beginning of 2023. So that's reflecting the progress on Pure Water SoCal. And additionally, late last year, water capacity fees, which are kind of the other big fee to new development, were also able to be decreased. So moving forward, we still are going to maintain a high level of efficiency that's required of new development, and we require separate metering and all of that. So those things will be maintained, but there has been a shift in the last couple of years on just what new development has to do for us. And I think that's it, but we really thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to you, and I can answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions?
Again, out of just curiosity, the Santa Cruz district seemed to have about the same amount of production. Is that right?
I think ours was in acre feet and theirs was in million gallons.
Could you explain a little bit about the new project, the Pure Water SoCal project? May not getting the name right. Where the water comes from? Yeah, that comes from the City of Santa Cruz wastewater treatment plant. And so we are getting a certain amount of water from the treatment plant, and then that is going through a pipe to our advanced water purification facility that is off of Chanticleer across from where the new pedestrian overpass is. You may have seen that construction. And so then the water gets treated to a very high level there, and then it gets piped to recharge wells that are in the SoCal area. Thank you.
Are you at liberty to talk about the success or not of the testing that's gone on so far since you started testing that system?
We're still in testing right now, so I don't really have anything to report on that.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
No questions, but I know the needs and demands of water in our community are very important, and the current status of where we are is, can be dire, but I just want to thank, both your organizations for doing what you do and help building the capacity within our communities. Thank you.
Thanks.
Pure Water is impressive. We hope that it works. The amount of the project seems remarkable. Terrific.
I can't not say something about Pure Water SoCal. Thank you for having us. I just want to reiterate in terms of the project and why we've chosen this project. These recycled water projects, especially for groundwater replenishment, but also water supply augmentation, are not new in this state. They've been actually happening since the 1970s down in Southern California. So questions related to its efficacy or, is it working or not working? This is a pretty tried and true technology. We actually just had the state come out. They did a whole site visit and inspection this week. We're continuing to show that we are progressing, that it's meeting the performance criteria. Get true. We do want to make sure that the water that is produced is regulated, permitted, will be submitted to the state. And then when it goes into the groundwater basin, we will continue that monitoring. We will be continuing to see the modeling projections are what we are achieving. So that is part of the plan that will continue both from what the district wants to do in terms of meeting the requirements for our customers, but also the state requires projects like this to do that kind of reporting.
Yeah, I guess I agree, and I commend you for taking on this project. I guess my question was on seawater intrusion. In the Southern California instances, are they also trying to prevent seawater intrusion, and has that been successful in the past?
Yes, specifically for the Orange County Water District project, I can talk about that. They have a whole series of coastal monitoring wells that are called their seawater intrusion barrier wells. Here for the Santa Cruz Mid-County Groundwater Basin, the Mid-County Groundwater Agency we submitted and was adopted a groundwater sustainability plan. And through the state mandate and requirements, we have to do annual reporting and 5-year periodic evaluations. So every year we need to submit data. Every 5 years, they will be looking at it. And that's how we will be continuing to track and evaluate the protective groundwater levels for seawater intrusion.
Okay, great. Thank you.
How long will it take for you to know if the basin is stabilized?
That is a question that also gets asked quite a bit from the public as well as our board. We will know based upon the actual levels that are taken once we start putting water in. They have basin management objectives and thresholds that we're trying to achieve. So, all the water is, what we've had for decades and years and years and years, right? There's no new water. And so, but water travels pretty slow in the groundwater basin. We have seen, levels come up with conservation where we've designed and have modeled that we will see those increasing once we start putting water in. But really it will be once we start doing some of the sampling.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Ashley Trujillo, and I'm the Senior Civil Engineer for the County of Santa Cruz, overseeing our sanitation engineering group, which is separate from the group that actually operates the system, but we do all the capital planning. So one of our sewer districts is the Santa Cruz County Sanitation District, and that's the district that serves the city of Capitola. And as you know, these state mandates have really changed the growth in our area. So tonight I will talk about how we are planning for this growth holistically and how it impacts Capitola specifically. And I don't have slides because sewer slides aren't as glamorous as water slides. Our district maintains a sewer flow model, and into that model we put 2 types of data. The first type of data is all the user data of the actual sewer flows from the connections. The second type of data is what contributes to what we call inflow and infiltration. You might hear it be called I&I, and that's stormwater that gets in through the manholes, groundwater that gets in through imperfections in the pipes, and then illegal storm, like downspout connections and things. So we learn about that type of data by doing monitoring during wet seasons. So to keep our model current, we update the user data when there's new developments, and we update the storm data with new flow monitoring data. And then we also update the system components when new projects are constructed. So this helps us to have a good working model that estimates the capacity of our system. In recent years, we have been focusing our capital development on rehabilitation projects to try to limit the infiltration and inflow into our system. But with the new growth projections, we are switching our focus to capacity projects for short near term. So we have run a scenario in our flow model that includes all of the development projections that the County Department of Planning has given us for the Santa Cruz County Sanitation District. And from this study, we have identified some key projects that need to occur so that we have capacity to accommodate the projected growth. And our 5-year capital improvement plan that's available on our website describes these projects. And we will be fine-tuning our CIP after our flow model is updated, which we're doing right now, because just during this past wet season, we got new data, and we actually were able to target the data where we saw there might be a capacity issue. We could get, really some site-specific there we go, data in those locations. So we're really looking forward to being able to tighten up the CIP and see where these capacity issues are. So here's how Capitola fits into this, all of this. If we identify an existing or projected capacity issue in any of the sewers within the city or downstream of the city, because we take the city's sewer and we pipe it all the way to the city of Santa Cruz's treatment plant. So if we see any capacity issues, we add it to our list of future projects. And then assuming that the capital is there, we will complete the project in the near future. And we have one such project under preliminary design right now. So Capitola can help us with this by letting us know of any significant developments that are anticipated in the city. In the meantime, if a new project is proposed in Capitola, the developer will reach out to Brian Wardlow, he's our permitting team member, for a sewer availability letter. And if it's approved, it states that the development can be served by our system. And the letter is good for 1 year before it needs to be renewed. So to evaluate whether we can serve a development, we go through the following process. If it's an ADU or a single family dwelling, a fourplex, something like that, they're generally never denied because the amount of contribution from their sewer is minimal in comparison to how much our system takes on. If the connection is for projects with 10 to 50 units, we will look at our sewer model and see if we identify any capacity issues downstream from that connection. If the connection is for a project of 50 units or more, we have to do a more in-depth review. So we'll get from the developer their projected water usage data, because the way sewer calculations are run, we assume that all the water taken in just goes into the sewer unless it's used for irrigation. So we get that data from the developer, and then we put it into the flow model and see what the downstream impacts are. And these larger projects require an at-cost account to be funded by the developer so that our staff can do this study. So what happens if we can't issue a sewer availability letter for a development due to capacity issues? There are a few paths forward. So in one scenario, we might have a project already planned, and in that case, the developer can just sit by and wait for us to do that project, and then they can move forward with their project. We might have a project, or we might identify an issue that is affecting multiple developers or a larger community as a whole. It might be an existing issue, but we don't have the funding to do it yet. So the developer can wait till we find funding, which could take too long for them. And so in that case, they are able to do the whatever improvements are needed to get the capacity to where it needs to be at their own expense. And then the last issue is if we have a development that is creating a capacity issue that would not exist except for what they are doing. So we have this right now with the housing at Cabrillo College. Our sewer system in the area can serve the area. It can serve a lot of other proposed development, but that development is just too large. So in cases like that, the developer's only option is to perform the upgrades themselves at their own cost. So what are capacity upgrades? They can include increasing sewer main sizes, upgrading pumps at pump stations to pump more flow, or increasing storage capacity at pump stations. So I hope this was a good overview of how the sanitation district prepares for and evaluates serving future development. And I can answer any of your questions.
Okay, thank you. Any question, commissioners? So to Commissioner Howard's question about water, presumably the mall, if it were 1,000 units in multifamily, they would exceed the capacity of the system on the west side of Capitola.
So what we've looked at, and I don't want to make any promises at this point, because like I said, we are getting our new flow model with all the new data updated. But what we see in our existing model is that we should be able to serve the type of development that has been proposed, we've seen some past plans at the mall site. If they tie into the larger sewers that are in 41st Avenue, if they had, if they could only go to Capitola, they'd have to do some upsizing of the system, but we think we could accommodate a development there.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last presentation from Central Fire.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jason Ney. I'm the Fire Chief of Central Fire. And I do believe that we do have a slideshow. Next slide, please. So Central Fire, we are the fire district that serves the city of Capitola. We're an independent special district. Some of this stuff doesn't necessarily apply to this, but we serve all the way essentially from the Santa Cruz Harbor almost to the city of Watsonville. We serve the communities of Aptos, Capitola, La Selva, Live Oak, Rio Del Mar, and Soquel. Next slide, please. Next slide. So originally 5 independent special districts. We recently consolidated in 2021 between Aptos, La Selva Fire Protection District and Central Fire Protection District. Next slide, please. Post-consolidation, we've got a combined workforce, 7 stations, 10 facilities. We've got a fleet maintenance and repair actually in the city of Capitola, the headquarters on 17th Avenue. And we've been working since consolidation on our master and strategic plan, which is probably what I'll talk about mostly tonight, where we did come up with a new district mission, vision, and values. Next slide, please. So some of the things we do fire protection, yay, that's the stuff we like to do. We also do fire prevention. We do inspections, plan checks, as well as public education and other preventative measures. Next slide, please. And some of the they call our organization all risk. So we do water rescue, fires in buildings, fires in the wildland, vehicle accidents, rescues, hazardous materials. So we're what's called an all-risk organization. Next slide, please. So in 2021, we consolidated. In 2022, we did a master plan. And in 2023, we finished our strategic plan. And the master plan was like a 20-year look at like, what does this organization need to do as far as upgrades, infrastructure, training, standard operating procedures, policies to be in business and continue to be able to serve the public in the next 20 years. And then the strategic plan is what does the next 5 years look like to start to chip away at that master plan? A couple of things that were the most glaring were apparatus replacements of the fire engines. And then really it came down to facilities as kind of our next big problem to solve. And I just will point out, this is before I'd ever heard of RENA numbers when we were doing this project. So, the goals of the organization remain the same despite the changes within the state. Next slide, please. RENA, the state mandated increases for local governments. So really, when we looked at the master plan, the facilities and the apparatus replacement were the 2 biggest changes that need to happen. And with the increase in population, basically, it's going to force us to look at kind of what our facilities are and how big they are and how many people you can house. Because basically, with the cost of real estate or dirt, it's really cost prohibitive for local governments to find properties in the places that they need to be able to serve that population. And so you either need to augment the existing facilities and make them bigger so that you can house multiple units inside of there. So really, when you look at our organization, historically for the last 50 years, we had 1 piece of responding unit out of those facilities. The one across the street, I think, was built in 1956. It doesn't house It doesn't house people of mixed genders. It doesn't house current fire apparatus well. We squeeze into that one currently. And they were built for volunteer firefighters. The one in Soquel, the same thing. La Selva Beach, the same thing. And so really what we're trying to do is augment either our existing facilities or find new locations at other sites where we can build a property big enough to house multiple responding apparatus out of those facilities. And just as an example, we serve around 90,000 people. We run about 10,000 calls a year. And so every 10 people is going to increase our call volume by 10 people, 1 incident per year. So for example, in Capitola, if you add 1,300 people, 130 incidents per year for Capitola. Can this current facility across the street handle 130 extra incidents a year? Absolutely, it can. But when we're talking about the county of Santa Cruz increasing population by 5,000, well, that's just units, right? So multiply that by 3 or 4, whatever number you want. We will see an already tapped system that will need some room for additional unit hours on the street. So that's kind of how we're looking at it in the future. And one of the topics that I just wanted to talk about is when, like Katie talked about, when plans are submitted, some of the most important things that the fire department is looking at for approval for plans. So water, like we heard about today, is there available water to provide the fire flow necessary to put out the building in case it catches on fire? And then access in for us and out for residences, all and around the building. And then we'd also look at, fire sprinklers and fire alarms, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, and then addressing so we can find your residents when we're responding to an incident. That's the end of my comments, unless there's any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? So I guess I have one. Do you ever foresee a time in the future, due to climate change, where we would be sort of a fire hazard risk would go up because of fires that come down from the Santa Cruz Mountains and are hard to stop? And that might dictate a change in building materials to more fire-resistant things than, like wooden siding that we actually are allowed to approve today?
Yeah, it's a really contemporary question. This is my opinion. We get lured into what we're experiencing today, right? This June gloom where we've got this asbestos blanket of fog that lays over us with almost little wind. And any fire that starts in the wildland-urban interface is probably going to be small enough that we'll be able to contain it probably about 300 days out of the year, maybe 360 days out of the year. But like we saw in CZU, there's probably around 5 to 10 days a year when the fuel, weather, and topography in our little area changes and we can have larger fires. So for example, and we don't get the Santa Anas or the Diablos like they get in Southern and Northern California. We just don't have that atmospheric change here. But I do foresee a time when we don't have that luxury anymore in Santa Cruz County. And we will need to start adapting to those things, like you're talking about, the fire adaptive communities that have cement walls and zero scape, 0 to 5 feet from your home. I think that the time to start thinking about those types of things is now, because once the weather patterns change, like we are no longer in control of it, and then we're playing catch up, if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking. And then, Southern California has instituted those rules in a lot of areas now with hardy board and things like that, right?
Exactly.
And roof materials that are more resistant.
Yeah.
Not your eaves are all covered. You don't have exposed wood and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I just watched a video. It's on KQED. It's free to air. It's a series called Weathered, I believe. And the KQED website has it, and it talks specifically about the Altadena and the Palisades fire, and it talks about just like those sustained winds. And let's be honest. There's 300 firefighters in this county at any given moment. That's not enough to stop Altadena or any of those fires if those weather conditions are in alignment with the geography and the fuel source. Like there's not enough people in this county to stop that fire, unfortunately, nor was there in Southern California.
Right, exactly. Okay, thank you very much.
If I may, I just want to take a minute to thank you all for coming out tonight, and this has been very informative, and we really appreciate your support as partner agencies. So thank you for being here.
Okay, we'll now open it up for the public hearings. So is there anybody from the public who would like to make have some comments about what you've heard so far? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on then. Okay, item number 2 on public hearings is 4820 Opal Cliff Drive, and we'll have a staff presentation on that.
Make a motion to continue this to a date uncertain.
So tonight we were going to ask for the public hearing to be open because we did notice for this, so. With that, we're asking for a continuation to a date uncertain. There's a couple items that need to be resolved before this one moves forward. So we would ask for to open the public hearing before continuing.
Okay. Oops. Does anybody from the public want to say anything about this? Okay, now we can move on.
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue the application at 4620 Opal Cliffs Drive to a date uncertain.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Howard?
Aye.
Commissioner Q?
Aye.
Commissioner Westman?
Aye.
Vice Chair Christensen?
Aye.
Chair Esty?
Aye. All right, next item on the agenda is 511 Escalona Drive, and this one we do have a presentation on.
Yes, thank you. It's almost 7 p.m., but good evening, commissioners. So the application before you is a design permit amendment and variance request. This is part of a larger ongoing development at 511 Escalona Drive. They've been previously approved for a design permit, coastal development permit, ADU permit, and a major revocable encroachment permit. And subsequently from that, they did receive a reapproval through a design permit amendment for changes to the exterior. And so today, this is specifically for the ability to build a upper story deck facing Sacramento Avenue. This is a photo taken recently showing the ongoing project, which is otherwise very near completion, I believe. The area in question is actually seen there towards the left. It was designed in a way to have a flat roof, and the original goal of this project going back to 2019 or so was to make that space designed to hold load of people and be designed to actually function as a deck. However, at the time, our codes weren't conducive to having an upper story deck in this location. They were aware of a number of code changes that would have made it more easier to do. At the time, I believe it was to remove the floor area component to calking the roof. And so they had designed it to be easily convertible to a deck, but legally so. So they got their approval without the deck, and over the course of a couple of years, that code did change, but then we actually reverted it back and introduced, in addition to having decks over a certain size, count towards floor area, at imposing additional development standards over time with respect to the location of decks, how big which direction and which property lines they can face, how big they can be, how much they can project. So we did actually have a pretty comprehensive 180 on our policies surrounding upper story decks. In now, up to between now and the past year and a half or so, we've seen that kind of, I would say, normalize and be addressed a little more softly with our latest code amendments, which, by the way, went into effect early in May. So we have a number of code revisions that have taken place since our last meeting. And the city's been in communication with the owner and the applicant for the past year and a half or so, knowing that we were having some pending code changes, again, that would possibly make the ability to build a deck here more feasible. So those changes have gone into effect, and they subsequently applied. And staff and the applicant knew at the time that in spite of those changes, there would still be the matter of one of the setback requirements that they would need to request a variance for. That in particular is the rear setback. So there we go. So the area in purple you can see there is the approximate deck location. It's along the exterior side facing Sacramento Avenue, and it's approximately 11.5 feet off of the rear property line, which is also the side property line of the nearest property at 205 Sacramento Avenue. And here's a view from Sacramento Avenue, similar to the photo we had shown a minute ago. So an interesting thing here, and this is where the findings for the variance come in, is that our corner lots have different development standards with respect to their rear and exterior side setbacks, which do produce a different overall envelope and general change in the design of homes. We actually had more recently discussed this as well at the beginning of the year with respect to garage orientations. Now on corner lots like this, they're typically allowed to build an equivalent setback to the adjacent side yard. So the rear yard becomes the side yard, and in this case, it would be a 4-foot setback. However, our deck standards, which require a 25% rear setback, do not have a provision in there to address this change for corner lots. So although you can have a rear setback for the primary dwelling of 4 feet for the home itself, the deck itself still has a 25% lot depth setback. These are a couple side elevations, and again, the purple area is the deck portion, and it has a standard 42-inch guardrail surround. Staff is not recommending any changes with respect to privacy mitigations owing to its placement, which is having one adjacent residential property, and the only area it abuts it is actually the front yard. It's flush with the front wall of the building adjacent to it. So with regards to the variance findings, which I have up here and we can refer to going forward if the commission would like, I'd like to focus on two in particular, which often are the limiting factors for variance requests, which is findings A and E, namely that there are unique circumstances that are applicable to the request in question, that are non-self-imposed and that generally don't affect properties surrounding it. And finding E is that this would not be a grant of special privilege to properties nearby in the vicinity or in the same zone. So this is a diagram. It's similar to the one I had when we were looking at that other corner lot at the beginning of this year. And in this case, the unusual circumstance as we described is applicable here is that the subject property is a reverse corner lot. And unlike the standards for the building itself, the upper story deck does not have any comparable provision to reduce it. And the net effect, as you can see in those numbers there, is that you have a very large disparity in the relative setback requirements, 4 feet for the building wall, as opposed to 27 feet 8 inches for the deck. And that was not necessarily an intention of our code amendments. Here we go. So broadly, we did identify, and not exhaustively, but we did identify numerous properties just within the Depot Hill area that exhibit existing decks with one or more nonconformities with respect to their setbacks. Specifically, with this map showing here are the decks that are on, except for one of those ones in the middle, are corner lot decks that are also, or corner lots with decks that do not comply with either a side setback, a rear setback, or both. So we did identify within a relatively small area a number of properties, and I might add again that these are corner lots, so they're already a minority subset within the larger pool of homes up there, and numerous ones don't comply with these standards. So we did not believe that this would constitute a grant of special privilege. I can cover any other facets of the history here or the development standards, which are only loosely covered in this amendment application and report, but otherwise staff is recommending approval of the variance, and I'm available for questions.
Any questions? Oh, so I have a question for you. The applicant's letter implies that we did not inform them of upcoming pending changes that would allow them to apply for this deck. And the French doors were put in before they had permission to use the deck, if I remember the history of this right. It allowed egress out onto the deck.
The deck, yeah, so if I go back here, the deck, from this angle, it is hard to tell, and it was intentional to have a bit of symmetry of design, but these are actually French doors on the right, and that may have been a bit premature to install those. I do not personally believe that there was ill intent there, but we did become aware of it after the fact, and that was and when staff did discover that had been framed in, it was past the point in which our codes had been amended and then repealed regarding the deck standards, so that window, if you will, had opened and closed. And I would say it is accurate that we had not actively advised the applicant that A, the codes had changed that would have been more favorable for, say, a project modification, and B, that had subsequently lapsed. Our only added comment to that is that's generally not something that we do to proactively tell people of zoning opportunities. I think that if we had more conversation, I wish I could have, or we could have, but
So, okay, now
not normally something we do.
it's more clear. It makes a little bit more sense. Thank you. Okay, and no other comments, then we'll open it up for the public. Is the applicant here that wants to make a statement about this?
Do I need to sign in? Should I sign in? Okay. There's no pen. Okay. I'm Valerie Hart. I'm the designer, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay. So soon. We're very excited to be getting to the end here.
Actually, that is a question. Are there any more change orders coming up you anticipate? Okay, this is it. The
Well,
fifth and last
our intention was to try to put everything together at the same time, and when the code changed, we took it 2 steps. So this was our second step. This is it.
So do you feel the service from the city was good or bad in this instance? You've been around the city. You do a lot of architect work.
Yes, I feel like the dialogue has been really good for me. I understand where the planning department was coming from. I understand also where my client experience was coming from, her circumstances. So, for myself, I felt like the dialogue was there. It was just there was this portion that the code has changed 4 times, basically, from when we first submitted. Of course, no one's going to be calling us and saying, hey, we're changing the deck code, you're not going to keep track of what we're doing. But we had, I know Christine had been into the office. There had been inspections taking place. So there was a feeling at times of disconnection. But for me personally, it's been positive. So, okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, back to the commissioners. Any deliberation on this item? Any comments, anything? Or does anybody want to make a motion?
Well, you know, I'm not a huge fan of decks, but I think this one works. It goes with the house. There really isn't a privacy issue. And I do think that on corner lots, it gets a little confusing with, you know, what's the front, what's the side, and how that works. So, you know, in this particular case, I don't really have any concerns or issues with the application and with this application and applying, you know, the standards that staff came up with for this variance. So I'll make a motion to approve the project at 511 Escalona Drive.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Howard?
Aye.
Commissioner Q?
Aye.
Commissioner Westman?
Aye.
Vice Chair Christensen?
Aye.
Chair Esty?
Aye. Okay, then the motion passed, and congratulations, and we look forward to you completing the project soon. Okay, next on the agenda is the director's report.
Okay, I have a short list for you tonight, but I did look up the Capitola Rod and Custom Classic Car Show. It is on Saturday, June 14th, so yes. I just wanted to give you an update on a few other items. So the wharf, the survey results are scheduled to go before the city council on June 24th. So those are being put together currently, and so that'll be an exciting conversation at city council. That meeting is going to start early. It's the last meeting in our fiscal year. The budget will be adopted. I believe it's going to be a 4 p.m. start. So a longer meeting, but take a look at the agenda for the items you'd like to see. The 41st Avenue Corridor Study, Brian has that underway and working closely with the consultant team. And he's planning on public outreach and stakeholder meetings happening in July. So I think late June, or anytime in July for the public outreach. So trying to balance that with moving into the wharf design and then jumping into 41st Avenue. There was a lot of work that went into interpretive signs for the wharf and working with different agencies, and I'm happy to report that those should be installed on June 26th, so right around the corner. That took about 6 months, but there was a lot of different agencies involved in the review, so that's exciting. And then lastly, this is an item that you're gonna be hearing more about. I'm sure you've all heard about the Cliff Drive Resiliency Project, and that's really looking at over the past 2 big storms, the impacts to Cliff Drive, and trying to preserve a major throughway into our through Capitola and into our village. So in those efforts, as part of that funding for the grant money, there's funding through the Coastal Commission. And part of that, it was about $450,000 to do the studies. Part of that is that we committed to doing updates to our local coastal program implementation plan, which is your zoning code under Coastal Commission terminology, as well as our long-term plan for under coastal, which is your land use program. So I will be starting to educate the public on what we're doing there. I'm hoping to have a community meeting just in our community room to bring forth the recommended edits to that. And then after that, I'll be bringing it to Planning Commission for review, and then it'll go to City Council for 2 meetings for adoption. But really want to get in front of that one. There's a lot in our land use program that doesn't really align with a few things that have been going on recently here in Capitola. So in terms of, there's old references to the rail trail corridor, and so we'll be correcting those references. There's some language that doesn't quite align with Measure L that we'll be fixing. So I just want to let you know that that's happening, and I'm not quite sure on the timing yet. I want to line it up correctly, but we are hoping to protect that bluff area along Cliff Drive, and to do so, we need to keep this moving in terms of the updates. So I'll be keeping you informed in that. And we've got a little bit of a gap from tonight's meeting to our next meeting in July because it'll be on the third Thursday in July. So you'll hear more from me in between, but I just wanted to bring that to the forefront so you're aware once we start talking about it. So, okay. And that's the director's report for this evening.
Speaking of the third meeting, are we still on to do the tour of the bluffs on Capitola Road before this meeting?
We are. So I will reach out to them and make sure, but I believe we set that for 4 p.m.
I have it in the calendar at 4 o'clock, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. With that, meeting is closed and we can adjourn until the next meeting on Thursday, July 17th. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.